Mine was good. Basically,
It's really good coming in this field. I feel like my first year, like when I
They're a
graduated,
nonprofit.
she actually like taught you a lot.
I've already told myself that.
You're lying. I've been talking to Babe about that so bad. I wish I could teach her.
Swear to God.
Maybe it's like, because sometimes, like I think about Waterkeeper, they're a nonprofit, but they just started selling like t-shirts and all that other like swag, so maybe that's more for like additional fundraising.
I don't remember what it's called.
I think that's for additional fundraising, because it's a way to like get more.
They use it in the
You
Vietnamese
could still sell stuff
soups.
outside
And
and be
it
a
just
nonprofit.
goes back into the business.
Right.
I feel like some of the Vietnamese food I also ate was
Well, and
my best friend.
it goes back into the
Part Vietnamese and like growing up. We've been friends since we had like our rubs.
Like it was my favorite.
And her mom was always making food. So I kind of was like used to some of the dishes.
I feel like a lot of people like
Oh my god, so that's
which I understand.
I'm living on the west side.
As like a teacher standpoint, I feel like she taught us like so much. And she called us out a lot. She was challenging. But like
So long.
Oh, I gotta show for you. I'm with your scandal.
Oh, I'm done with it.
Oh,
I binge watched it already.
Rhythm and flow.
That's a new show with Cardi B.
Yeah.
Did you get out of school today for this?
Yeah, I hated it so much. I lost a child. She's stupid and she knows it. So reason.
So babe,
right.
I'm in
Well, I have
the
first
album
period
and
for you,
everything
so I
just
don't have to
dropped
go
on
into
Thanksgiving. Or like these few people. But
So I think that's
this like
like
vlog, I don't know what it's called. This vlog like creates this playlist of like must listen to type of like songs.
Yeah.
Cause it's like one of the top. It's so nice to see it, but I feel like I was like when Thanksgiving hit, I was like, oh, congratulations, and after Thanksgiving, so congratulations. I'm like, here you go. Just dropped. Just now.
What is that?
He's like, they started advertising it somewhat, but then kind of stopped. And I've been like consistent.
Just a
And I
little.
was
What time?
why? Not 16.
That's like.
Wait, you're
It was like 6 nights.
It's like
Twice is enough.
So what is it?
There's Apple Music, Apple Music, Spotify,
how do you store it so it doesn't get like other stuff?
two Bs.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And it's the lower two.
That's
Yeah,
so pretty too.
Lord Boros.
I got it from
Yeah, that's
Nice.
well, it's only an EP, so it's really
It's something that's been really easy to sell.
Yeah.
so it's on there, Spotify.
But I've been using it, I guess, better.
So they are essentially a group that this is like they are considered like Americans, and because of certain numbers, you know, when people report decisions in life, it gives people a bad rap. But really, it's meant to be. It's supposed to be like this collective of like people who do different types of music. Really, it's supposed to be Yes, Jennifer. And it's a whole bunch of them. It's kind of like they're all like a family because everyone knows each other, so people really are related. And it really kind of started because of Days and Nicholas' cousin and Saigon. So all of them, yeah, all of them are like, they really were the ones to come out. I was like so proud of them.
Yeah, they just have this little metal thing, and then you just push it.
Now, the one song I really like, he's a little weird, but
Me, my team came second.
Talk to Him is the song I really like.
Last week, after placing dead last
I don't
year,
really
so
like the introduction, but it's okay.
improvement much.
What's the challenge? Like, what do you have to do?
So they have like little challenges, like you don't have to know specifics of physics, it's just basic problem solving. So
whoever makes the best glider, whoever can pad an egg the best from dropped textbooks at different heights, whoever can.
Did you say an egg?
Yeah.
Well, it's because you drop stuff on the eggs.
Yeah.
Like you're not dropping the
Ooh,
eggs.
that's
What
even.
do you
Do you
what
really?
you know that?
Like
Well,
when you
with
drop
little
an egg
kids,
from
you-
like a balcony.
Yeah, or even just like, I brought stuff to school,
Yeah.
and they were not
So
holding it,
weird.
and
Now
then you
you're
drop
right
it,
there
so that's
listening
brought
to
like
this.
bubble wrap and cardboard and,
I wonder
and
if
then they
that's
even some stuff, I'm gonna have a challenge with
just
straws
wanted to
too,
make
this
sure.
way, I didn't want to give them like a higher
Yeah,
prize
oh,
than
it's
just
really
straws. Which will be really hard, but I
I
saw it online and I was like, someone constructed like almost like a
He has
pyramid,
not.
and then
Well,
put little like,
I think that's just
a lot of the kids are a
the
little
one
bit like
that's called Talk to
under
Him
the
is in
remote,
my room.
honestly, in plans, but some are really clever and come up with like interesting
Yeah.
stuff, so I just wanna see if they can.
Is this for the
Well,
turtle
if you
school?
want some help.
No, this is a after school
Oh,
program.
nice. That'll.
Yeah, but I couldn't have cheese. I was straight eggs and
Do you have a
rock so.
presentation too?
Yeah, like patting it to make sure it doesn't like. Anyway, our design looked really funky because we did stuff that no one else did. We basically just deflected all of the force of the textbook onto other structures, so it didn't even touch the egg.
For what?
Her boyfriend's
We
a
also
rapper.
Those
Well, it's just
No, why?
Rubber and
You're
glass.
bending in the wrong way. Too far in.
What did it survive? Did it survive? 40. 40. What was the next one? So you're gonna like 80s. We should have shot higher because we didn't place first.
Why didn't you say anything?
And the core containers.
I know. That's not useful.
So like I posted
You
like
use it, you don't take care of it.
What is it?
I knew
What
it
did I
was-
say? Should I put it in front of my
Like, I
backpack?
mean,
My
like the
backpack's
30
really heavy, so it
second
falls
round,
over
and
like it
then
breaks.
yeah, I had my laptop in my backpack today, and I was so
no, I
scared all
wanna
day. I was
see
gonna
Aw.
Dude, I put my laptop in the back. I put
I
everything of
have,
value to
well, I
me
have office
in
hours
places
where
where
my
I can't.
TA
Do you guys have to bring a
position,
laptop
because
to
I
my
moved around.
I don't have
and
one.
I brought my own.
I had job club.
That's
before.
I brought mine because our meeting.
Really, I probably
I've
just
had
work on
some.
my dissertation during my office.
I have my after school program,
Oh, really?
it's our last week, so I
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a
but
presentation?
there's,
Do you get paid for them?
I don't
Yeah.
think so, so my
I
idea
had to do
was,
everything on my
if you guys can,
Do like the.
This one got like 1,000.
we could, I could even use you all and we could go to Upstate,
Yeah.
like an hour and some change before then.
Oh,
We'll probably only stay
Yes.
the first hour anyway, cause they tend to get into nitty gritty stuff that isn't really
When did
relevant
you present that?
to us after that. So if you meet
I
for
mean,
an hour,
it's like with
Meet
this
with them for an
connection
hour.
support that
Yeah.
have already been signed.
So are you gonna take
It's
like
really, I think it's
well, it's up to
possible
you,
to
what,
have
what,
this,
I mean, I feel
in
like
this type of like
if you wanna go back to school,
work,
it's right
you
there,
have to
so
kind
I
of
could,
get your way.
if you
Like,
wanna
yeah, it
catch
is
your
what
last
it is,
period,
but
these
you
guys
also
right
don't
now
wanna
are gonna miss it,
just
cause
use
realistically,
those
we're planning
as
on
your
walk,
way in.
or at least be in the car
He could be, I
So
mean,
at
this
least
is a lot more than
You mean
the
the
other.
around
Cause the
there.
other was
I like that.
full blown houses and none of them are promoted as much as this.
Yeah, I
But he
guess,
also had,
yeah, we'll drop you off
you know,
first.
ASAP, you know,
These
ASAP
guys will
was
only have like 20 minutes or something, so.
It sounded different.
It was me and
Give
my
that
headphones
full stuff.
wired
You made that up?
in
Oh,
10 minutes,
dude.
and then I
What?
said,
Feels like we're behind, but
Speech and debate.
not even.
Wow.
you need to live that.
What time?
I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna rap on the side. No, you need to live that because then when you went to UB to do someone on the radio,
They'll do,
she goes,
have after school stuff?
on the radio.
Or no?
And I was like, no, I'm not sorry. And that's when everything ended because I just was like, then I'm envisioning myself and thinking,
like, that's like what I kind of move away. I mean, schools, like, you know, I can't force anyone to do
Little
it,
kids
but
take yellow.
one of the things I think he really should pursue is music engineering, because I'm like, they have actual programs for that type of stuff, and then it's, you also have that credential of what you're doing. So if you decide I don't wanna do this one thing, but like I have the credentials behind me to say that I can produce this music.
there's an app. Is this like an app to pay for the, not sure if it's
No,
like the card,
no,
but not Iggy.
Chanel.
Oh god, it's like a joke. It's a joke because like
Did you do it, Kyle?
I feel like there's a lot of girls that I see, but I don't know, like, I feel like there's not enough attention.
there's not, and I'm not gonna go out and embarrass myself. Like I could be like, you know
You
what,
can
I'm just gonna
embarrass
pick a
yourself?
career
gypsy.
Just a jet.
I love it.
Well, I carry a lot of things, just not that. Maybe I should.
Your chocolate tweezers.
I'm not just that chocolate. Maybe I'll compare tweezers.
It's a nice book. But like
I would say if we could have like a picture of
she's
it.
like
The way you said it was so,
kind
but it was also so classy at the same time.
Are you? That's my.
Like,
Are you traveling? Did you travel?
It's like,
Well, you guys did go like
it's, but the way you said it was so
Probably
classy.
enjoyed it.
It's just like
That's what they do.
You're just like that's facts. Why can't I just
Are you ready?
Are you sure you don't want that?
See, I'm just like not this much over she's like this after 2 minutes.
And you go out with friends and stuff? Have you seen any friends?
And that's how
I
it
have.
should be.
Like
That's
a
how it
couple
should
times.
be.
Like
Okay.
so
So
my
so
sister
I don't know. I brought it out.
Yeah.
That was nice.
a little bit of a connection.
that's my savings, my
Did you guys
energy.
travel for that? Like,
No, not that.
We did not want to. We just needed it to be easy.
See, these are the times when we gotta-
Here's the thing, sometimes when I.
Yeah.
Can't you just like
District
comment
you
on
travel
it?
for Christmas or?
Yeah, for Christmas, I wish we had family and
I'm not
baby.
doing it.
Will it fall off? I'm all about it.
I wanted to go.
Oh, and then you
I
can
feel like there's a little more
I
time.
wanted to take like a whole week.
Around that time. If you
What am I
travel-
doing? They're gonna like put the metal to end it.
Yeah,
And like,
that's the recovery time is being materialized.
Like, it's just like.
Oh, that's not that bad.
What are you like making you do?
Maybe it's the
I
summer.
just,
That's
Or maybe
yeah.
you don't have to fully commit. You know what I mean?
It has to be the engineer, even though my math.
Well, I was
she's
gonna say,
good,
whenever
she's
whenever
lower
you
than
find
English,
that
it's
inspiration, that free time or whatever, and just comes up, just write down something bit by bit and just, that's how it is. Like, when you were out, you was just like, it's just, you
I'm
were.
I know.
No one else. Yeah, Sophia did.
oh my.
She just skip by her side one, but
It's okay.
Okay,
good. I got an 800 on my SAT score, but
I'm bored.
you have 1600. Why did you turn on my math score?
You wrote it down, right?
800 on my math.
Actually, I can't
I'm remembering.
Guessing your English is also really
Clients
high.
like Google search.
Like, well, then I'm like,
I guess I did really well my AP
through my rap.
My English, my essay.
Let me get my license and I'll figure out like.
That might work
I
with
feel like
you.
I'm great at that one.
Give them the Amica rap.
Oh, your SAT essay? What would you get? If you score higher than me, like I feel like is that between like
saying
Hello, everyone. We're gonna get started because it's right at 12:30. Thanks for coming to our luncheon. We're really excited to have the Western New York Youth Climate Council talk with us today and present. I'm gonna have them introduce themselves and give a little bit, just key things about themselves they think are important for you to know. If you get a chance, please sign our sign-in sheet, and we have some tell us what you think feedback forms, so that way we can always improve our luncheons. So please take one and fill those out. And yeah, thank you all for coming. So whenever you guys are ready. Thank you.
Hi all, my name is Emily Diet. I work for the Western New York Environmental Alliance. I'm their Youth and Climate Justice Coordinator. And over the past year, I coordinated the fellowship program, which unfortunately is no longer in its true existence as it was the last few years. And Ilias Khan was one of our fellows. There were 10 of them. And through that fellowship, we provided different educational opportunities, really connecting them to the climate justice movement and skills in advocacy and other organizations, really in Western New York working towards climate justice. So through that, Ilias really, I'll let him tell you more about his climate story and how they've kind of developed this Youth Climate Council up until this point, but Megan reached out to me hoping to connect with these students that have been planning the climate strikes downtown at City Hall and are currently working on a campaign to declare a climate emergency here in Erie County and Buffalo. So we are now the Youth and Climate Justice Initiative of the Alliance is supporting their work, the Youth Climate Council. And so I have had the privilege to bring these students around to share their message, their story, and what they're working on. So I will hand it off to them now and let them tell you all about it.
Alright, so I guess I'm introducing is Khan. I was a fellow with the Western New York Environmental Alliance Youth and Climate Justice Fellowship. That's a mouthful. And now I am the one of the co-organizers of the Western New York Youth Climate Council as of June, which was what, like 7 months ago? 6? I don't know. It's been a very short period of time, but we started out as about a dozen of us, and now there's about 20 of us. But our story has kind of stretched back further than just June. So the first strike that was organized in Buffalo was me. I had longer hair then. But before this, in February, I was with the fellowship at the Birchfield Penny, and one of the presenters at this event, the Western New York Climate Conversations, was from Zero Hour, and part of her speech and her message was she was asking us all to strike on March 15th, and the fellowship sat down afterwards, and everyone was like talking with this girl, Sahela, and she asked them, "So, would you guys want to do a strike here in Buffalo?" And they all kind of like nodded, "Yeah, okay." But I was like, "Hell yes, I'm gonna do this strike. It's gonna be amazing." And all of the other guys were kind of like off leading their college lives. They're all like 17, 18, 19. And I was sitting in school, and I had decided to do the strike then, but 2 weeks before that, I was like, "Damn, I need to start working on this." So I started trying to get kids involved, trying to put up flyers everywhere. And by the end of the first week, I had gotten in trouble a total of 4 times with the administration. It was great. I had put up flyers in every hallway, every nook and cranny, even the bathrooms. I enlisted the help of girls, obviously, because I can't go into the girls' bathrooms, to put flyers in the stalls so that all of the girls would be able to see that. Because what else are you gonna do in a stall besides look at the wall? And by the time we actually got to March 15th, we had a sizable number of kids from not just our school, but from a bunch of other schools, because we had reached out to various schools across the county. So there were kids from East Aurora, from Olmsted, from City Honors, and one other school I can't remember, Cornell, I think. Yeah, it was Cornell. And there were about 80 of us, and we all kind of congregated in front of City Hall, and we basically stood and chanted, and had a blast for about 3 hours.
Were there people all over the world doing it at the same
Yes.
time?
And I was about to say that. So part of the reason that Sahela asked us to do this March 15th strike was because Zero Hour is this national organization that's been in touch with the international global movements like Fridays for Future, and she had told us all in this audience, there were about 100, 150 of us, that around the world kids would be walking out of school that day. So I was determined to make Buffalo part of that movement, part of that global feel. But that whole event was a long time ago. So I don't know how effective it was in the first few weeks, but I think what came afterwards was what was really important. So we kind of built up some momentum here. We got people to notice some things, but in April, next slide, thank you. In April, we had a team of youth. Most of them were small youth, as you can see. And we went and we met with all of the Buffalo Common Council members, except Rivera, who deferred us to one of his staff, which we were kind of unhappy about, but he's chill. He's in the photo there. So we met with all of the Buffalo Common Council, and we asked them all, what would you be willing to support a ban on plastics in public schools? That was our original ask. We were all there like, we need to do something in our school system because we waste so much plastic every day, and it's absurd, and it's obviously having an environmental impact. And after a while, a lot of these kids were like, okay, it's summer, I'm gonna go have fun. And I was kind of left there like, okay, what now? So in May, it was May 3rd. It wasn't really summer yet. It was like beginning of spring, but we held another climate strike again because of a global call to action. And at that one climate strike, we had our first politician show up, and I was bouncing off the walls. You can tell by my expression. I was so happy. I was like, yay, we have a politician. Fabulous.
And who's that politician?
And that is David Rivera. He finally showed up. He shrugged us off the first time, but he couldn't avoid us in May.
Who's a Buffalo Common Council member?
Yes, he's the Buffalo Common Council member that gave us his staff member to meet with. And at that particular strike, I think, even though there were less people, I think it had more of an impact because it was then that Emily and I started thinking about, what now? This team of young folks that were meeting with the Common Council had kind of broken up. No one was sure where anyone was going, and, we were like, okay, so what's the plan? So Emily suggested that we make a group of youth that would kind of take over in its place and push for the same kind of action that we were pushing for with the strikes and with that team of youth that were talking to the Common Council about banning plastics. And we finally got that opportunity to discuss what that would look like at the Western New York Youth Climate Action Summit at Buff State. And this year, I wasn't there last year, but this year, at the end of the summit, we were afforded like half an hour. Oh, right. Gotta give a plug to the people who made it. New York Master Teachers were the ones who organized this, and they invited students from all over Western New York, high school and college, to attend this summit. We were there for the whole day, and at the end, we were afforded about a half hour to discuss organizing, for the future. And about 12 of us, including Sophia, broke off and went into this little room where we had this sticky note, and we just said, okay, we want to make a youth group that is going to push for climate action in Western New York. How do we do this? And over the next half hour, we sweat a lot and came up with this basic rough draft for what the Western New York Youth Climate Council would become. And from that foundation, we kind of got a little bit of a start. And it's changed a lot since, but the original principles of trying to get climate action through direct actions like protests, through policy, through giving speeches like this, have remained central.
So before I had gone to the climate summit that Elias just talked about, I was pretty unaware what Elias was doing with the strikes. I go to Amherst, and Elias and Val both go to City Honors. So when I went to the climate summit, I knew I was interested in doing some sort of activism. Growing up, I was really into nature, and I went to the Adirondacks every summer. I went to nature camps at Tisch Nature Preserve, but that was just my thing, and I didn't really do anything beyond that. So at the climate summit, Elias said, you can come and meet at this office space my family has in a couple weeks. So ever since last June, we've been meeting pretty much once or twice a month. We have a lot of different people come to every meeting, and we just sit there. It's mostly just us, and Emily comes, and we brainstorm. We always have food, and our big thing leading up to September was planning our strike on September 21st, and a lot of it is
each other and trying to figure out what our next move should be to try and have more like sustainable and environmentally based policy in the area. And so to prepare for the strike we had on September 21st, we decided it would be a good idea if we had like art and things for the strike just to make it prettier for people and so people didn't have to bring signs because sometimes being like that prepared for something is impossible with everything else going on in life. So we went, what was the space? It was on the west side.
The Foundry.
The Foundry, yeah. And we painted these signs that Elias's parents who work at UB designed for us, right? Yeah. So and so we painted them like super bright colors and we wrote sayings on them and left them out for people to take at the strike, and it looked super cool with everyone having one. And then we attempted to design like a trash animal, and we actually collected trash from Canisius at one of our meetings. And Elias has like a backpack like frame on his back, and it looks really cool. And the woman who was helping like kind of design puppets and stuff.
I'll take it. So this is my second climate strike, and this is when I really decided to get involved. Because for the first one, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. What's this? Okay, I'll leave school earlier now. Alright, fine. And I think this was following the passage of the CLCPA, which is the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. There you go, I switched it. And that's when I started thinking, wow, that's really cool because Elias works regularly with different organizations, one of which being Push Buffalo, who worked really hard to get the CLCPA passed. And that's when I realized that I really did want to be a part of his Youth Climate Council when I heard about the opportunity from his mailing list. So that's really cool.
Has anyone ever heard of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act? No? Huge, bold, best in the nation piece of legislation that just passed in New York State in June.
And what does it do?
It is setting emissions, basically goals that meet not only the Paris Accord and others to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to 80% by 2050 and 35 by 2030, I believe. It was definitely watered down from what the original CCPA, which was just didn't have the word leadership in it, but prior to that, it had much stronger standards and more of like an equity lens, making sure that all future developments met certain standards basically. But once it finally got to the governor's desk, which he still hasn't officially signed it yet, even though it's passed. But New York Renews is the coalition that the Alliance is a part of, Push Buffalo and hundreds of others throughout the state. New York Renews, who are really pushing for even just to make sure that we get the money that's...
What dollars are attached? That was what I'm gonna ask.
Exactly, yep. So they're actually pushing for $1 billion. That's gonna be kind of the next campaign for New York Renews. And making sure that there's like a local connection. So that's something else that they're trying to work into their campaign coming up. They're working on right now to declare a climate emergency and ensure that we get funds here in Buffalo, because it is kind of a little vague right now how that's gonna really be implemented.
Thank you, Emily. So yeah, here's some extra pictures from our different activities in the community. So we ended up submitting a 576 signature petition from local high schools to the county to help declare a climate emergency. Honestly, we spent like a week collecting those signatures. We got them from about 10 different schools, not just in the Buffalo area, but also in Williamsville, Amherst, Sweet Home, etc. These are just pictures from when we turned those petitions into county legislature. And it's kind of a precursor to the initiative that we're heading right now. This was also a cleanup that we did with the Alliance for the Great Lakes. So we like to participate with events that other organizations run because we believe that partnership and supporting other people's initiatives are really important.
So this was the September 20th strike. You saw the art prep day with me with the backpack thing and the buffalo signs. And that strike, it took like 2 months of planning. And we tried to bring in other organizations. We were like, hey, all of Buffalo, look, we're planning to do this big climate strike. Other people are going to be striking around the world. This is set to be the biggest one ever, and it was. And in the end, we had 1,300 people come out, and we had a total of six politicians come out, and we got them up on this thing here. It's not really a stage, but it's kind of like up on a step, and we asked, do you support a climate emergency declaration? Would you all support that? Raise your hands. And they all raised their hands. We have photographic proof. So
Who were those politicians? Do you
those
remember?
politicians, I believe Mark Poloncarz was one, David Rivera was another, and two other city council people. But I can't remember. I think they were at the time still candidates. And there was one more, but I can't remember exactly who they all were. And this was another 3-hour one. This was in coordination with the Western New York Peace Center, and we split the strike in half. Half climate, jobs, and justice, and that whole field, and the other half about World Peace Day, which was a celebration of trying to achieve peace, the peace that we have achieved, and how we going forwards can achieve peace in our communities. And uniting, as the Peace Center's Vicki Ross says, uniting the struggles, which is a little weird way of saying it, but I like it. And at this strike, we tried to get as many youth out there as possible, to show politicians and the community as a whole that this is a youth-led and youth-organized movement, and that we as young folks, as being our future, really care about it, right? And hopefully we conveyed that message, because the news certainly portrayed it that way. I was glad about that.
So other things we've done just to kind of like get our message out and meet more people that might want to get involved is tabling and workshops and petitioning. So the main workshop we've done was at the World on Your Plate conference at Damon College, and it was kind of similar to this, where we talked about why people should declare a climate emergency and kind of making it like more on a personal level and what that might mean to like you and your future and your community. And Ilias and Bal both went to a hearing about wind power on the lake. It's offshore wind power?
Yes.
Right, yeah. So a lot of Republicans in the area are against it and say that it would kind of mess with like the lake bottom. And so they went to a hearing to learn more about the issue and how people are, or what people are doing going forward to work to have wind power in this area. We also canvassed at that Elmwood Arts Festival just to get more people on our mailing list so people can keep in touch with everything we're doing and learn about our events. And then last month, the three of us went to a teaching about climate change conference, which there were probably about 100 teachers there through the Summer Institute, and they spent the whole day learning about how they could bring climate change into their classrooms, and it was teachers from every subject, not just science. And so we spoke at the end just about why it's meaningful to students to learn about climate change in our classrooms, and that we really do want to hear about it. And then earlier in November, Ilias and I presented to local high school students it was Global Charter in Lackawanna, and we just kind of explained like what we're doing and how they could get involved and how it really affects us as youth, particularly.
I just wanted to elaborate on the hearing about wind power. Basically, there were some representatives from Hamburg that were opposing the plan a particular plan to have wind power offshore in Hamburg, and most of their arguments weren't about wind power as a whole. It was about the particular plan, which was just a draft, pretty much, because it's a project you can alter if there are inconsistencies and errors. So to try to ban wind power altogether because of one less than perfect plan was a little bit off-putting, I guess. So our biggest initiative that we are working on now is to declare a climate emergency.
So we mentioned that earlier with the Erie County thing, where we put 576 signatures said climate emergency. What is that? What does that mean? So climate emergency is essentially a non-binding resolution. It basically says, we as a government have decided that we're going to start treating climate change as a serious, life-threatening, situation, and promise to act on it, in the following ways. And then whereas, blah 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 blah, like 12 different pages of stuff, which most people don't like to read through, but we do. So our hope is that if we can get regional and local governments to declare climate emergencies, then we've got our foot in the door, essentially, and we can push them to, go further. Say, we're going to make a law that, I don't know, reduces our greenhouse gas emissions by taking so and so many cars off the road or something. God knows what. But right now, those plans are in the future. We're focusing on trying to get climate emergency passed.
It might also be good to note that Erie County has created a plan that's available online for anybody to access that is to meet the Paris Accord agreements already. So we already have a somewhat county plan that's trying to meet those goals, but also the CLCPA hadn't been passed yet, which really is even more aggressive goals, which could help connect with this initiative as well.
Yeah. So why declare a climate emergency? Climate change, that much is obvious. People are dying, homes are on fire, the entire Australian bush is on fire. In case you didn't know, koalas are practically extinct. So next time you buy like a koala teddy bear, remember, those guys are only in zoos now. That's it. That's depressing, right? So, more specifically, the UN's 5th IPCC report stated that as a species, we've got 11 years to reduce our emissions and roll back our crazy extractive lifestyles in order to save what little we have left. And if that isn't enough, we, in Buffalo specifically, will have a wave of climate refugees coming here because we have the Great Lakes right next door. We have this massive water source, and that's going to be a critical resource in the future as many massive fresh water sources disappear. Now, the early effects of climate change are already being experienced. Like I said, koalas, they're going extinct. California is on fire. The sea levels are rising. Miami is getting inundated. I could go on forever. But essentially, we need to declare a climate emergency because the climate change is an emergency. And unless governments treat it that way, we're never going to get it.
So we have a lot of different strategies we're utilizing to do this to make sure we get everyone involved. We have a petition, one that's very youth oriented and it's just for people college aged and younger. We also have one for adults, and we have it online too, and a lot of people from New York City have started signing it, which is interesting. And we've been doing the strikes to kind of raise awareness that this is something that really matters to us. We're willing to skip school, which I know sounds fun, but at the same time it's when I went to the strike in September, I missed 5 AP classes, and it's a lot to do, but it matters to me way more than school at this point. And then also just raising awareness in our community through different events, talking to people like this and the schools we've gone to, and then also just getting climate emergencies declared on a smaller level is really important. At the workshop we did on the World on Your Plate conference, we talked about people kind of individually, then households declaring a climate emergency and just kind of adapting their lifestyle to that to show support, and also just to recognize that the world kind of is changing and we need to adapt and to mitigate those effects of climate change. And then we also recently started working with the Partnership for the Public Good. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but they work with a lot of nonprofits and other groups across the city and the entire region, and they help them advocate for different things they're working towards, and they also do a lot of research, and they have a huge research database. I believe it's called the Buffalo Commons, with a lot of Buffalo and Western New York centered research to different issues, from everything from environmental stuff to voting. And so we're working to do what they call a plank, which means if it gets passed, they'll help us or just helping us find research.
So these are just pictures of the petitions we had for our 576 signature petition. So yes, right now we are trying to get the Erie County Legislature and the Buffalo Common Council to declare a climate emergency. And primarily we are focusing on youth, but we have a written petition for the youth and then a written petition for adults, as well as a petition online, which is why we can get New York City concerned neighbors to sign our petition. And we are also striking on Fridays as well. So I think primarily we're trying to focus on finding an organizational way to disperse these petitions, so contacting environmental clubs at different high schools, even middle schools and colleges and universities as well. Basically contacting any group that could help us spread this petition so that when we do present this petition to the Buffalo Common Council, they're more likely to listen to us. And also, on Thursday, the EU actually declared a climate emergency, so that's a huge step. Along with the 11,000 scientists, basically paper that declared a climate emergency that basically told the world that we do need to be declaring the climate emergency and taking accountability, not just at the state level, but also at the county and city level. Because when you do declare a climate emergency, yes, it is a non-binding agreement, but it's also not just an acknowledgement, but a confrontation that there is a huge problem, and it definitely paves the way for future legislation that's more specific. So this isn't the last stop. For example, the EU passed, yes, the climate emergency declaration, but they're also having a separate resolution in conjunction with the declaration that aims to have the EU be 100% greenhouse gas emission free by 2050. So, yes, we are going to be working on that resolution, but as we are not scientists and we are not researchers, we will be reaching out to other organizations and resources for that. So, stay tuned. So, that's pretty much it.
So also, like you can take photos of this and save it, write it down somewhere. But we want to hear what you have to say. So if you have any questions for us, we're up here, ready for whatever you got. So anyone?
So I have two questions. One, you mentioned an online petition. Is that something that we could access and sign up to?
Yes. Yes, it is.
How would you do that?
It's on.
I'm gonna email it to you right
Okay,
now.
great.
Yeah, it is on change.org. I believe the title is Declare a Climate Emergency in Buffalo, New York. So if you have phones, I see those there. The iPhones, yeah. I know y'all can probably search that up in like 30 seconds flat, so do it, sign on to it, get your friends and family to sign on to it. Need as many signatures as possible. We're trying to stop climate change here, so everyone counts. Anyone else? Oh, you have two.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Are you ever tempted to give up? To just stop?
I think it's really exhausting. Like I'm 17 and my mom does similar work, and I think like I kind of see it really gets to you because it seems like you're screaming at like a brick wall at times. People just aren't really receptive, and like there are some people who are really great and really receptive, but a lot of people are like, oh, okay, like that's nice, like get away. So I don't really think I ever feel like giving up though, because it's my entire future. So if I don't do this now, like there's no other time to, I guess.
I think for me, I just get more and more concerned, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to give up. You'll meet a lot of people, or you already know a lot of people that you care about who are like, oh yeah, the planet's dying, I won't be here to see it. And it's like, oh, I might be though, and if I have kids, they probably will see that also. And I think a lot of it is the kind of guilt associated with it, because everyone knows they have a footprint. So if they acknowledge there's a problem, then they're responsible for it also, and it can feel very guilty, and I definitely feel that. Especially since I would say my family's of relative privilege, and if anything did happen, like, oh, just don't live next to the coast, like move somewhere where there aren't hurricanes, because we have that flexibility, but it's an issue for everyone.
first strike, in those first few weeks, I was tempted a lot to give up because, we had teachers who were against it and we had students who were against it. And there was even this really, really vindictive news article that was like, the youth are being manipulated in Buffalo by old people who are controlling them and making them go out of school. So I was like, man, these people really, they just don't get it. And I was so tempted to give up for like a good week, and then I was like, wait, if that old person in Amherst thinks that old people are manipulating us, that doesn't mean that I should give up just because he says I should. That means I have to make sure that he understands that I'm not being manipulated and that I'm going to keep doing this work until what needs to be done gets done. So we even wrote a letter to the editor and basically said, look, mister, we get what you're saying, but you're wrong. So thank you for your comments, but we are going to keep doing our youth organized and youth led work until what needs to be done gets done. So that's my
And it
answer.
got published.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna ask, you guys mentioned you're not scientists, but are you like striving to go into something related to this, like, in the future?
I've been applying to college, and the majors I've been looking at are like conservation biology and environmental science. And there's so much you can do with a degree in that, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm interested in doing. I'm not like a super like researchy person kind of, but I am interested in like staying and doing this type of work and stuff related to the environment, but not necessarily like scientific stuff.
I'm also a senior, but I'm taking a gap year. I definitely want to work in the public health sector because that's why I got in with climate justice. But I was thinking environmental engineering. That's what I've kind of been looking into lately. He's a sophomore, by the way, so.
I'm a sophomore, so I got time.
Yeah.
But environmental law and policy, I think, honestly, is where I'm going to go because, I've seen how City Hall works. I've seen Mayor Brown once in total, even though we tried to get to meet with him. And I've seen how that whole system, works, and it's fascinating. And I've realized that, we can make change on a ground level, but it takes the guys, mostly guys, there should be more women, up top to actually, move policy, right? We can stand and shout outside of City Hall all we want, but unless we have people on the inside who are, taking it seriously, who are pulling that same weight, we're never going to get anywhere. So I think for my future, I'm going to probably be a politician, even if it ruins my life.
Wait, what, didn't you have been invited on the inside?
I have been invited on the inside, sort of, even though they speak gibberish half the time. So the mayor declared that Buffalo would be a climate smart community, and then he kind of dropped it to this climate smart community task force, which basically runs this, whole plan for Buffalo to be climate smart. The whole idea of the plan is that Buffalo is trying to reach goals that are set by the New York Energy Commission. Yeah, NYSERDA. To become a more, environmentally sustainable city, and they invited me there to be the youth representative, the singular youth representative for all of Buffalo's climate needs, which is kind of unfair. But I was lucky to be there, and although they've recently they haven't actually put any new policy into place yet, they are slowly working towards making a climate action plan for Buffalo, something that Buffalo can say, look, we actually care, here's a plan. But it's still a ways away from that, and the mayor has made this a 5-year plan, so who knows, it could take a while. You got a question?
I had a comment. First of all, I hope you are establishing a timeline and an archive about this, because this is really exciting as far as a youth-led movement regionally, but also to have that as a resource for all. I attended the September 20th strike and was thrilled because of the percentage of youth versus, let's say, over 21. So that shows me that one, you did a really successful job in getting out of the crowd. Two, I learned about it, unlike not hearing about the previous strikes, through Western New York Peace Center. So that coalition work and so forth definitely expands the range. And three, use of images. You have a couple there that are really striking. Oh, and that one, which was the Buff State Conference, and the huge poster with footprints, I thought would, is a really quick association that people can make with the visual of the footprint. And then social media, if there's, hashtag and so forth, that's something that you can include in your talks. Like I didn't see a hashtag, climate strike or whatever, so that's a suggestion. And the Fridays, you're doing this every Friday?
We try.
Okay.
So, if it's like a blizzard outside or, we can't make it, of course that those are the exceptions. But usually, despite sometimes my parents resisting, I at least try and go out every Friday to stand in front of City Hall, regardless of the weather.
And you're coming from the Falls, or? Where are you coming
I'm from City Honors, so it's
Oh, City Honors, okay.
it's not too far of a drive, but I try my best to get out.
And finally, just kudos, it takes a lot of energy and also vision and attention and so forth to do this, and so thank you for doing this work.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So I'm interested in your thoughts, like, what are like the best strategies for reducing the like, whether like individual or large scale, like footprint. Let's say, you see in your life you don't have a lot of time and energy in this moment to devote to this cause, but you want to continue to make changes. Like, where would you say to start or continue?
Alright, I would say go after industry, because as I recall, there are like 100 industries or something that contribute to 71% of the world's global carbon emissions. And that's a huge, portion. Like, only a few people are contributing so much, whereas the rest of us contribute, 30%. If you look at, the way that third world countries are disproportionately, they emit less, but they're more at risk to the, effects of climate change. It's obvious that instead of, just taking things on individually, like, I can save the world single-handedly, right? You have to also think about the fact that industries, which dominate our lives, also need to get a wake-up call about this.
On a similar note, I would say support businesses that do work sustainably. So whether or not you get dinky dinks like my reusable utensils, like that does add up, because if you go to multiple events and they have plastic utensils, like, yeah, you could reduce your single use plastic waste like that, which is really important because it doesn't degrade or anything like that. I would also say that as communities, make it easy for people to say yes to sustainability. For example, in New York City, they are starting just a bus lane. So lane just for buses to make it even faster than necessarily cars. If people did that, no one would want to use their car anymore. If you can get to your place twice as fast, why use your car? Why try to keep it up, like maintain it? Why pay for gas? Just use public transportation. So if you do make public transportation more efficient, of course people are going to use it. Just, I guess, advances like that make it easier for the general public to say yes. It's definitely a big thing. And there are definitely coalitions and organizations we are interested in working with who work towards that, such as the, what is the name of the organization that heads the transportation?
Buffalo Transit Riders United, I think.
Citizens for Economic Justice,
Right.
CEJ,
Oh,
and that's
CEJ.
their campaign.
Yeah, because those are definitely very closely related. Like, climate justice has a lot to do with equity, because people are disproportionately affected, especially underrepresented, underserved communities, whether or not that be geographically or just in general.
Yeah. I think they covered a lot of it. I think like staying informed is also really important. Like getting news not only brainstorm just so you kind of know what's going on and how people are perceiving things. And I also just think a big thing is like, if you have, like, keep it kind of like a topic of conversation. I know it's not the most like natural thing to talk about, but I think like within like groups of friends or family members, it's like just an important thing to kind of make sure people are aware and informed with like accurate news. And I think if people who don't believe in climate change kind of hear it very casually through people that they care about and trust, it kind of makes you maybe question your beliefs.
Oh, also with regards to the holidays, maybe gift sustainably. So I'm not saying go crazy on like glass straws or anything, but any changes help.
Yeah, where your money, like where you spend your money is I think as Americans where we can really shift things, right? And like what we spend it on. Do we buy all the time from Amazon? You know, like these big industries that are essentially making money off of us and also destroying the planet, you know, so and also they mentioned transportation. That's actually the biggest, if you look at that report that I mentioned for Erie County, that's the biggest footprint that we have is people in their cars. And again, as they mentioned, our public transit isn't exactly as efficient as it can be. And so there's a lot of big moves right now to make that. And so supporting public transportation, I'm not saying you have to get on the bus, especially if it's, you know, coming out here, I know it can be difficult, but you see the cars in a lot. I mean, like that's just one example. We're all driving, even myself, you know, so supporting those when you can, signing that petition, you know, taking that moment, because I know we're all busy, and just supporting those that are taking that extra time to be present and, you know, show up when you can, really. Having the support and people there on those strike days, or even when we're submitting petitions, is so important and powerful when people see the numbers that are behind it. So I was just wanting to add that.
As future social workers that are gonna be employed by agencies that might have a union, might have a pension plan, think about what that pension plan is invested in. So you can urge, and UUP, United University Professions, supports plans to reduce climate change and divest from fossil fuels. You know, that's a real easy top of the line, divest from fossil fuels. So that's something to keep in mind as a citizen action that you can take as a union member action, or your own, setting up your own 401k, look at what your fund is investing in.
There's a divest from fossil fuels campaign, I believe. I don't know how active it is here at UB. Obviously, there's a ton of money here at UB that is invested, unfortunately, in fossil fuels, and a lot of, you know, that's not necessarily, it might be common knowledge, but it's not necessarily commonly talked about. And so, like, as students and teachers here, you know, just understanding that and having these conversations, because it's a lot bigger than we'd like to acknowledge, right? So, I don't know, is that campaign still going on, divest from fossil fuels?
I
know
think
there was
it's
a-
two levels. I think it's students urging the administration, and then the union talking with the administration, because UB Foundation, just to get into some particulars, UB Foundation is where the money is that gets invested in these things, and so and our ability to impact that is really, really minimal as an employee. It has to be through administration and all those white guys in charge of things. So.
Any other question? And I have a question for you. Why social work? What area of social work? Just go on Twitter.
I don't know, I really like the diversity in social work, like all the different populations, like mental health, domestic violence, like child abuse, I just like it all. So like, I really like the diversity of it and just like helping people.
Yeah, I kind of second that. I'm thinking about going into like school counseling, and I'm also thinking about doing wilderness therapy. So it's like kind of your summer camp that you go to, and you kind of just work through life problems and nature. I love nature, so yeah.
I'm super indecisive, and social work is not, hey, pick this right now.
Yeah.
I also like being a part of the community and helping any way I could. So.
pretty much the same as her. I'm not exactly sure what I'll be doing because there is so much flexibility with social work, but that's part of why I wanted to be a part of the program. I wanted to pick something that will allow me that flexibility, still allow me to help people, and maybe even thinking about like coming up with some sort of like community outreach type of like program or initiative. Those are just like random thoughts in my head, but nothing for sure yet.
I'm in my last year of the PhD program here, so I'm interested in teaching and research.
I'm not in social work, I'm in dentistry. I went to a documentary screening about 2 or 3 years ago, and that's how I got signed up to the global interest contract.
Like everyone else, there's a wide variety of options you can pick from when it comes to your field. I would say right now I'm interested in substance use disorders, I'm thinking, but I still have like a few months to figure out what path I want to take, so.
I was working in refugee resettlement and just saw some gaps in programs and policies, and I'm looking to address those through my research.
A suggestion, they're dual degrees, so you can get your MSW and you can get a JD. You can get a MSW with an MBA, and you can get an MSW with an NPH, so public health. So if you look at, if you're going for a master's level, it's, I think, 3 years for the JD and the MBA. It's a 3-year course instead of a 2-year course for just the MSW. So that's something to consider in the future. And one of the things that drew me to social work was, one, our code of ethics is very, very specific about, we do this for the general good. We speak for those who are not in a position now to speak for themselves. And also, a macro level social worker is to that policy and decision making and elected officials. I'll give you an example. Barbara Lee is from California. She has been in the House of Representatives for, I'd say, about 20 years. She is a social worker, and she is the only member of Congress that voted against invading Afghanistan in those days immediately following the 2001 September 11th attack. So, to have that singularity of vision and backbone to say no, not going to perpetrate war, not going to target those that had nothing to do with the attack. So that's my spiel for, social workers in public policy.
Out of curiosity, in your experience, I think we can all agree that having 100 businesses contribute 71% of emissions for climate change is pretty screwed up. So clearly, industry needs a little bit more of a code of ethics. In your experience, how would you best propagate that into industry? I mean, we can always try to police these businesses into, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, but we're always going to be a little slower than them in terms of law. So is there...
One tactic is to showcase, look at this great business, look at what their bottom line is and how being environmentally just affects their bottom line. So until industry says, oh, this pays, also the other thing would be enforce the damn laws you have now with fines and penalties and so forth, which is not always happening. And particularly under the current federal administration, EPA just Friday or Saturday was nice timing on their part. I think Friday, EPA said, oh, by the way, we're not going to pay any attention to, I think it was water standards and release of pollution into water.
Yeah, it's always very tactical when they release those reports, like during holidays, and people wouldn't be as likely to pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So around that time, usually I keep my eyes more open because I know they're gonna try to slip it in somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was great.
So we don't have much time left, but we do have petitions and mailing lists in that green folder up there.
And I
We also have the online.
didn't ask permission. I took a picture of you in front of the screen. Do I have your permission to put it up on Twitter and so forth?
Also, guys,
Okay,
I forgot to
good.
mention, outside you'll see everything's labeled where you put your lunch items, so the forks and plates and your food can go in the compost bins, napkins, if there's not too much food debris in recycling, and then if there's a lot of food debris on it, in garbage. So, just so you know, it's all labeled out there.
Have you replaced plastic cutlery, non-plastic cutlery?
Did you fix it?
The physical ones, we have the mailing list and the actual physical, petition up here. I'm gonna grab a pen.
Nathan, do you have everybody's name?
Thank you.
All the students.
And then the mailing list is basically just, you know, what we're doing, what's going on, how you guys can help. And the physical petition is just something that we are going to turn into the city clerk's office probably sometime in late December or early January. So, thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you.
Is there leadership succession and leadership development? Like, I mean, obviously, we've got some spokesperson here who has, the origin story and so forth, but it would be nice to see a little more equal time.
We've been thinking about that, with regards to other people I'm also a part of. We tried democracy, but we also don't have as many younger members at the moment.
Okay,
And he's still a sophomore, so we have a few more years
Right.
to try to build up that.
good, but I'm glad it's on your,
Yeah, it's on the agenda. Yes,
Good.
definitely.
good, great.
Yeah. As far as like organizational, we have like the three of us like co-organizers, and then we kind of have like some people who are more active, and then some people who just kind of like don't have the best stuff.
Right, we definitely believe that being able to define our levels of community.
I'm Pat Shelley, I don't know, and your name?
And Valerie. Thanks for meeting us.
Good.
Are you in the Engineer Peace Center, or are you?
I'm a
just
member of,
member?
I'm not
also a member.
active in that, yeah, I'm not really active in that, but I,
And if you didn't get a chance to sign in, please do.
yeah, I tweeted September 20th for, UB's Twitter account, and then my personal, Facebook. There's some
Why were you
signs.
going? Yeah.
I'm probably going back to this one more since my,
Yeah,
class
yeah.
was right now. So, going back to
So,
that.
good, well, thanks, this is good for, a good topic for us, and thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Cheer.
Oh, yeah. Do you guys, do you know where the office is? Do you remember?
In fact,
Oh, yeah.
it's, you wanna go back to 5, say,
Where does these go? Are you?
Oh, yeah, I'll take those. Thank you so much for filling it out.
That's a great one. Gotta give you a hug for that, that's so smart. Yeah, of course. Do we need to take more pet time?
oh, sorry, I cleaned it, but,
No, thank you, I'm fine.
but they said if you guys want to take some.
Yeah, there's tons left over, so we have bags we can put it in for you.
Yep,
Okay.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Last year, there was such a
We
big
have
crowd.
a-
This year,
I
it's
just wear the
Yeah.
and the fork and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was looking at those forks, I was like, I'm already.
it's interesting,
Yeah, that's something that bothers me.
paths go like, remember it's taking